Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night of the local time. We have a lot of very interesting updates and details, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about Kiev. Today, on the 3rd of January, we start receiving more and more details about the Russian missile strikes all over the entire Kiev and Kharkiv that took place on the 31st, 1st and the 2nd of January, 31st of December, 1st and 2nd of January, and according to information we have, the Russians mainly were targeting the Ukrainian industrial complex, like industrial production of military missiles, drones, everything that connected with the military forces. And as we see, as I understand, as a result of those attacks, the Russians managed to destroy the Ukrainian military facilities, military production plants. Furthermore, according to some results, according to some sources, the Russians managed to discover the bunker of one of the deputy of the Zaluzhny, and as a result of Kinzhal strike, the Zaluzhny deputy was killed or something like this. But we still haven't received even a single geolocated confirmation of that, so we need more details to let's say, to confirm this information or not. Also, we have more footage and more details of Ukraine air defense work or probably of Russian missile strikes. As you can see, one of the buildings was heavily damaged during the let's say, battles and clashes that took place on the 1st and the 2nd of January. Furthermore, we got some updates from Kharkiv as well. The Russians bombed the city, and this morning, on the 3rd of January, the Russians continue bombardments of Kharkiv, and according to information we have, 3 Iskander missiles were launched in direction of the city. And the thing is that during the previous night, the Ukrainians once again tried to hit the Russian air defense. There were at least 2 waves of attacks. The first wave took place at 11 p.m. of the 2nd of January, and the second wave of attack took place this morning. And this morning, yesterday, the Ukrainians were trying to attack Belgorod with drones, with let's say, air forces. All those drones were shot down by the Russian air defense forces, and this morning the Ukrainians tried, after they managed to hit and overload the Russian air defense, this morning the Ukrainians tried to attack Belgorod with Alha and the missile .U, but those missiles also were shot down by the Russians. Now we are moving to Kupin's direction, and we have the final confirmation, the final updates about the battle for Sinkovka. And now we have 100% sure confirmation that the Russians took a decision to stop any offensive operation in Sinkovka. The Russians probably realized that they're completely unprepared for this offensive operation. They didn't think that the Ukrainians will create such a powerful defense belt, and basically now the Russians are regrouping. Obviously they need time because they had significant losses during the battle for this village. Now they need to regroup, to get fresh forces, and to think what are they going to do next. If you have access to the video, you will be able to see the videos above these red skulls. There are a significant number of Russian infantry that was killed during the storming process. Now we are moving to the south. We have some geolocation, some clarification of the front line in front of Makeivka. On this video, for example, we can see how the Ukrainians were bombing and attacking the Russian infantry sabotage groups that were moving along the fields, which confirms the Russian presence in front of Makeivka and the Russian control. On this scene, we can see the Ukrainians bombed the Russians with cluster rounds, and after the Ukrainians were trying to attack the Russians with FPV drones. So all these events took place here, so right in front of Ukraine main positions. So this is like this video we are using just to confirm the Russian presence in front of Ukrainian positions in Terny and Makeivka and Liman direction. Now we are moving to Solidar. More and more sources confirm about the Russian progress in direction of Veselaya, yet we haven't received even a single geolocated video confirmation of this attack, but obviously they are logical, they have some sense. The only thing I don't understand that most of the mappers updates the fields, so there are no strongholds among these fields, there are no fortifications area, so it's very difficult to understand how the Russians attacks like along this line and along this line without having any fortifications on the ground. So I don't understand these attacks, but most of the mappers, including like Deep State, Cyric Map, have updated their maps showing exactly this progress. Maybe there are something that we don't know, but and anyway, this is logical improvements and movements of the Russian forces on this direction. We got more updates from Bogdanovka Ivanovskaya area. As you can see, significant number of icons. That means something. The Russians launched a very powerful offensive operation, and the Ukrainians, if if you remember yesterday, we discussed that according to some sources, the Ukrainians launched a very powerful counteroffensive operation with significant number of armored vehicles, infantry, and according to the sources on the ground, the Ukrainians were attacking, or according to the author of that post, the Ukrainians were attacking in the direction of Kromova. But today we got more details of that attack, and basically the main clashes took place along these strongholds. First, the Ukrainians and the Russian sources published the video of those clashes. For example, on these scenes, we can see how the Russians were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian forces somewhere in this area. This is, for example, Chasiv. On this second, we can see Chasiv and Canal. This is the geolocation on the map. This is it. The Russians, as you can see, were bombing this territory heavily with multi-launch rocket system, trying to pin down the Ukrainians and not to allow them to send some reinforcement. This is the bombardments on the northern stronghold on the north of cemetery. This is it. This is the geolocation. The Russians, as you can see, were bombing the Ukrainian edge positions. This is the bombardments on the south of the stronghold, right in front of the cemetery. This is the cemetery, and this is the episode of bombing. We see that the Ukrainians managed to bring some reinforcements. Some of the armored vehicles were destroyed. And on this video, we see probably the Ukrainian infantry landed in this area. So, as I understand, as a result of Ukrainian counteroffensive operation, they managed to force the Russians to step back, and they managed to regain and recapture some lost positions during the Russian offensive operation that took place during the previous weeks and previous days. So if we return back to the map, we will adjust the map, and according to information we have currently, the Ukrainians managed to restore control over this territory, and we will color this area because we have complete geolocated confirmations of Ukrainian presence, at least in this area. When talking about Bogdanovka itself, we also got a lot of updates. The Ukrainian sources published the video how they were bombing and attacking the Russian forces along these tree lines, which also confirms the Russian progress in this area. If you remember, a few days ago we got the video from Bogdanovka, from the farms on the north east of this village, how the Ukrainians were bombing, which confirms the Russian presence inside of the village. And now we start receiving the videos of bombings of Russian forces along the tree lines, and this confirms the Russian control. But the only thing we still haven't received, whether the Russians managed to enter this stronghold that located between the tree lines in Bogdanovka itself. And for example, on this video we can see this is a small episode. This is like the tree line, this turn to the south to the direction of Bogdanovka, and this is the small corner as the stronghold, this one. So we have the geolocations of Russian presence along the tree line, but we still haven't received even a single geolocated confirmation whether the Russians managed to enter this stronghold or not. So for now I will keep this map as is. I will color the tree line, this one, but I will not change the color of the stronghold, because there are very likely the Ukrainians still have their position there, and they still have possibilities to rotate forces and to control this part of Bogdanovka. Anyway, the clashes for the village continues, and now the Ukrainians have significant problems, because according to Ukrainian video, the Russians managed to establish control once again over this territory. And now from this tree line, the Russians have fire control, complete fire control over the roads, the streets of Bogdanovka, and obviously we can start counting days before this stronghold falls, if the Ukrainians are not able to create some counterattack. So we'll follow this situation. Very interesting. The situation develops on this area. The Russians do have some progress in Bogdanovka, but the Ukrainians tries to counterattack between Popovo Forest and Bogdanovka as well. On the southern direction, we got more updates, just let's say without any geolocated videos about the Russian progress, and the Russian sources on the ground confirms that they managed to force the Ukrainians to step back from positions along the railways. But we haven't received even a geolocated confirmation that the Russians managed to enter this area. Maybe the Ukrainians withdraw their positions due to very long front line. They just want to shorten area to to get more reliable positions or something like this. So we'll see what is going to be next. When talking about Avdiivka, we haven't received anything from this area important. The only geolocation we have that we can use to adjust the front line is Ukrainian FPV drone strike against the Russian forces in this area in the vicinity of Perva Первомайskaya. On this video we can see how the forces of 59th Motorized Brigade managed to discover the Russian position somewhere in these pipelines. The Russians had some fire, maybe they were trying to cook some food, and as a result of strike with FPV drone, that position was discovered and damaged or destroyed. So no matter the results of those strikes, obviously we have possibility and we have the right to correct the map, something like this, and adjust this territory under Russian control. When talking about Zaporozhye, during the previous 24 hours, during the previous night, we got significant number of geolocations. We have the Russian bombings of Ukrainian positions on the west of Verbova, and according most of the sources, we have a lot of confirmations about the Russian progress and the Russian attempt to attack along this line, and probably during the next 24 hours we're going to receive more updates about some Russian progress in this direction. Also, we have the videos of Russian FPV drone strikes to the south of Robotyne. On this instance, we can see how the Russian drone Bobry was flying above the trenches. At some moment, these trenches attacked the machine gun position, according to the author. Also, we have the video of Russian tank attacking to the west of Robotyne. The Russians continue their movements to the northern part of the village, trying to cut completely the road between Orechov, Novodanilovka and Robotyne to establish complete control over this territory and basically to cut supply of the Ukrainian forces. So we see that the battle for Robotyne continues. I'm not sure that before the Christmas if there are going to be any, let's say, significant progress, but obviously after the Christmas ceasefire, they're going to be let's say maybe even complete establishing over complete control over this territory. The same story we got to the north of Nestyryanka. We have adjusted the map based on these bombardments geolocations. On this video we see how the Russians were bombing the Ukrainian edge positions on this direction, which confirms the Ukrainian control. So this is the situation on the ground. No changes in Krynki, and probably the most important update of today is that according to some Russians, these days we need to expect some speech of the Putin. He's going to tell something. Maybe the situation, his speech is going to be connected with the situation in Belgorod. I believe that Putin is going to announce the Christmas ceasefire within the next few days, for 1, 2 or 3 days, or maybe he's not going to announce any ceasefire due to Ukrainian attacks or something like this, but something important, he's going to tell something important. And after that, we're going to see the renewal of offensive operation from the Russian side. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds you, we condemn any violence in Ukraine. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.